Okay, we are live.
So, Bastian is taking some photos.
Yes. And we need this link. Okay. Copy, and yeah.
What's the name of the protocol?
You're live, guys.
So I will post it to the Unibright official community. Perhaps you can post the link as well.
Yeah, I'll post it in Telegram. So.
Yeah. Probably nobody can hear us yet, but as we change the live stream ID, we'll wait a few minutes.
Yeah.
For everyone to resend it.
Yeah, hold on.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So
can we see how many visitors are there? Then we'll still wait a minute.
We have how many visitors? We have 4 people watching.
Okay.
I'm one of them.
all right. So let's give this a minute and then we do some introduction. Yes, I grab a cup of coffee.
And Ruud is falling out of the picture.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. All right, let's sit closer to Jack.
What's that in the middle of our screen?
That's the CTO.
No, that's right. I think we're talking about this.
We got 5 people joining here now, or 6. So should we start with the first questions, or should we just
let's do
like an introduction?
A brief hello. Hello and welcome to this very first Unibright AMA in 2019. We are very pleased to answer your questions, and we're very pleased that it's not only Stefan and me today, but it's a few great members from the core team. We've got Ruud, Jack, Bastian, and Ingo here today, which is great, and we're all happy and waiting for your questions that you can throw in or already have sent via email or Telegram. And of course, you can use the YouTube chat, which might be the easiest option for throwing in any more questions. And we're sitting here to talk about anything that came or comes across your mind.
Exactly. Well, Ruud, you have some questions.
I have some questions. Yeah.
First, if the people can hear us well.
Yeah, I think they can hear us. Let's see if there's any. I can. Yeah, that's just clear enough. All right, so let's start with the first questions that we have. It was about the Deutsche Bahn article. Are you actually using the Unibright framework itself for the Deutsche Bahn?
Well, the part of the workshop, as we put it in the blog as well, was first of all the workshop on tokenization. So the workshop started from the very beginning on how to use blockchain, and this is far away from starting a workshop how to use a Unibright framework. But of course, the main goal for us in the end is that the Unibright framework will be the central tool to use for the company, in this case, Deutsche Bahn, to get things going. But it wasn't part of the workshop, and as it's also clearly put in the blog article, it may take some time to get it from a concept or a proof of concept, what we did, to real implementation. But of course, main goal with all our activities, be it consulting or promoting the framework, the main goal is always to promote the Unibright framework itself.
Yeah, and the great thing about the Deutsche Bahn thing is that with this tokenization idea we have been talking about and we've been exploring with them, we feel that this is a very powerful use case. We will employ as a use case of the framework, of the Unibright framework itself, because tokenization and the creator thing of building an ecosystem is something that has approached us from very many sides at the moment. So this is some coincidence here that we can come up with a template for the framework itself.
Okay. Then there was a question in the chat as well. Right now we have the template multi-party approval ready on the demo, and when are all the other templates available on the demo?
Yeah, it's hard to put one specific time here. The idea of the multi-party approval template was, as it is the easiest template to understand without any external system. So the only external entry point that we have is our email connector, which can be used by everybody. For example, a batch tracing process or a request for quotation process always needs some bigger ERP part, like an SAP system, so it's hard for the public to use that. Our idea is to take it a little bit from the demand. So when we are able to work with a pilot customer or a workshop, then of course we will focus on that. But besides that, our plan is to release new templates, like say every 2 or 3 months, to even make the demo bigger. But there's no specific roadmap that we would promise right now, because when there are more important things to do, then of course we will focus on that.
It's all about shifting resources. Maybe we can add that we just started our consulting part as well.
Yes,
it's time consuming as well, for there's high demand in this case. So we shift in between consulting and developing. Yeah, that's the same term.
Good point. And the perfect outcome would be that a consulting package also results in another idea for an additional template. So of course, we do not want to do the workshops only once and then forget all about it, but to take the information that we got, put it into a template to reuse it for more clients. This is one of our scalability options.
Yeah, for all of you that have not seen it yet, visit unibright.solutions. And you can see our approach of offering different workshops from in different sizes that aim at enterprises that want to get into blockchain. And something we learned that we have to offer more than a framework, some more general education on helping enterprises getting business processes into the blockchain, and that's what we offer with Unibright Solutions.
Okay, great. We have Thomas. Thomas asked, what has been Unibright's biggest challenge this year?
This year?
Last year.
This year has been easy.
Well, the biggest challenge, really. I think when you see what happened last year, we also put a recap in our blog and had some kind of a retrospective interview on Altcoin+, where we tried to sum up the craziness of last year. There were so many challenges, starting with setting up the business idea, running the token launch, getting development done, and attracting pilot customers. Yeah, for me, it would be hard to pick a biggest one.
Yeah, perhaps the first thing that came to my mind was the whole legal thing, like getting all the regulation here in Germany right, and doing everything with our lawyers to do the sound business from Germany, and being some kind of blueprint ICO that is fine with every law that there is. This was something that took us a lot of time and
some sleepless nights.
Yeah, but there are different perspectives. Of course, if I ask some developers, they would argue differently. So yeah.
Okay.
Perhaps the EOS.
But we made it.
No matter what, we made it. I heard a lot about the EOS coding, which is
from the developer's perspective. Yeah.
Okay. Limster from the chat asks, are the team able to disclose what they intend to do with their tokens, with their team tokens?
Okay. So I guess this refers to the team tokens that are blocked for 1 year from the ICO.
The 6%, yes.
Until April or May.
20th of May, I guess.
Yeah. We had a statement on this in our last interview on Altcoin+, that we in general intend to hold them. We've discussed it. We've discussed different ideas about what to do with them, even about relocking them for another time period. The overall question is they won't be thrown on the market or sold. We want to stick to the tokens and to the project long term, so it will be something we can prove to the audience that we are in for long term.
Yes. I think one idea would be, when we lock them, we all lock them for the same date. So for 1 year after the token launch. So the next lock we would implement would perhaps target a longer period of time, but also implement some vesting. So say if we go for 5 years, 5-year lock, then we would have 60 months where we can always unlock one portion of the tokens and then see what we do with them. we could honor the employee of the month, but we could also think about a non-profit organization that we could give these tokens to try our framework for free, so to say. There are many ideas, but as Martin said, the important point is the idea is not to receive the unlock, to take the tokens and to dump them, but to hold them for a long period of time.
Yeah, but we'd like to get your ideas on it too. You can write to us afterwards. We just had a discussion about NGOs, and it would be a good idea to give those tokens, or at least a great share of them, to NGOs that apply for some project they want to do with blockchain and Unibright. And so our idea was somehow to have some application form, and you can come up with a project and say, oh, we want to do something, and Unibright gives in the tokens for them, or throws in a workshop so they can set up the project to help NGOs and to educate blockchain on a broader level. This is something that sounded good to us when we talked about it a few hours ago, but it's in the making. Looking for comments.
Okay, great. Another one from Linster. When a smart contract has ended, how do you intend to dispose of the tokens that are not rebought? We discussed that.
Okay, he means the smart contract of the client.
Yeah.
Well, once the client brings in the tokens into the platform, they are locked, so he can use them for the utility we provide, and if he doesn't use them, he did not use them, so he's not allowed to take them back. As soon as they are locked in the platform, they're there for their use. And we should incentivize him to to think about other use cases if he really still has tokens left. But we put this in many interviews many times. The most integration cases are reoccurring cases. So once a process is set up, it's most likely that it will reoccur over and over again. So for me, it would be very hard to think of a scenario where an integration process suddenly stops with only half of the tokens used. But in that case, they're in the platform for his later use.
Project-based stuff.
Well, perhaps. From a legal point, by signing the agreement of locking the tokens inside the platform, they're inside the platform.
Okay, good. We have a question from Stefan. Will you be releasing an app for the phone for Unibright?
Well,
Unibright app on the App Store.
When we discussed about the front ends in the very beginning, we decided to have a responsive approach on most of our tools. So there's no app needed, but you can just use them on your phone. And so far, if I'm right, this is the case for the Explorer, but not for the Designer.
Right.
So currently we don't see the need to put many resources into dedicated app development, but rather focus on a full responsive app that can also be used on any mobile device.
Okay. Yep. Great. Then there's a question from Arnold. Will Unibright, the framework will be able to handle a large amount of transactions given the limited TPS of Ethereum?
Okay. Yeah, in general, we are not limited to Ethereum in any way, besides of the token, and I guess the token transfers are no problem for the Ethereum network and its capacity. Looking at different use cases, we always make clear that we are blockchain agnostic, and we always offer the blockchain that fits the use case. So the easy answer would be no, we're not limited by any capacity of any blockchain, and that is true for Ethereum too.
And concerning our token, we implemented some kind of a buffer mechanism. So of course, a business transaction or an integration transaction is not stopped because of latency of an Ethereum network. It might happen that by this buffering, we do some transactions where actually no Unibright tokens are left. This might happen, but we take this on our side, so to say. So we're completely fine and completely independent from the throughput and latency of the Ethereum network.
Okay. Great. We have Gary from NEM here. So Gary has a question from hi guys. What else have you got planned to build on NEM, and how do you what do you like about it? Oh, it's not it's not Gary from NEM. It's another Gary.
What do you like about NEM? What do you like about NEM? We like that they are production ready. That they are.
What are you planning to build on them?
Yeah. But I thought the other part of the question was like, what we like about them. we like that it's a platform that can be used already.
Yeah.
And it has great features, and they focus on the features that can be used in a lot of use cases. Not every use case, but they selected a small part of the blockchain universe they can really handle very well. The question about what will be built next on NEM. Yeah, let me guess. We've got some ideas about tokenization and some requests upon tokenization. And that's something still in the discussion, whether we will take NEM assets and NEM tokens, or if it's something we have to build on Ethereum. We are in this thing about tangible and non-tangible tokens and how to model them. But this, of course, depends on the use case. My guess would be it's something about tokenization and bringing out tokens on the NEM platform.
Yes, and we would never use NEM just for the purpose of using NEM, but where it makes most sense, of course. So, yeah.
Okay. Next one from Boy. What particular blockchains will Unibright be able to connect with? I think you already answered that.
It's also a question that tends into the future, I guess. So currently we did successful proof of concepts on NEM, Ethereum, of course, Hyperledger, EOS, NEO, and I'm sure that I forget about some of them, but it's not that most important point, because as Martin put it, the great thing about NEM is that they're product ready. So this is also deciding on what we use. And we also saw that many new protocols still rely on the Ethereum virtual machine. So even if it's not the Ethereum network, the main contracts will still be written in Solidity. So once you got Solidity covered, you already can cover many blockchains. But which one specifically will be the next completely new one that we implement? We have some research ongoing, but as always, we will announce things when they're ready to go.
Yeah, perhaps the idea about hash graphs,
like Tolar.
Tolar, for example, or Hedera. Yep.
Okay. From DK Chat, did you sell your Ethereum from the ICO? And are you in Euro, or do you still hold Ether from the ICO? And do you have less money to operate with? I think we answered that already a couple of times.
Yeah. We can turn the question around. So we are completely fine to go for months and years with a development. We have an agile approach, so we can adapt on the market and on the requests we get. And the Ether price does not affect our long-term plans.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have Jordan Belfort. Do you have
good job then?
Yeah, Jordan is always a question.
Jordan Belfort, number 17. Do you have an estimated time frame when in Q1 the framework will be product ready?
Yeah, actually it is. I think the term of product readiness is perhaps somehow sometimes misunderstood in terms of having one product, which is the final version for all time. But if you own a smartphone, then you know how many updates your operating system gets, and it's the same with all software, because we rely on other software, and there will be updates all the time. So we will never be ready. But in terms of being ready to use, we are with public beta. And the main goal of 2019 is to get customers on that platform to even prove the product readiness.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, and if that includes coming up with new templates, for example, with tokenization, then it's hard to predict the date. But we're feeling the urge that new templates are needed for customers. We will just go with the demand the customers put on it, and this. In saying this, it's not possible to name a date.
Yeah, but we're in a very good state to finally give an idea to companies, not only the benefits of blockchain technology, but the usage for a real product-ready framework with a very common use case that makes it clear how to use it, actually.
Yeah.
So.
Another one from Jordan Belfort. What are the goals for 2019 and 2020 for the Unibright framework? How many real clients do you expect?
Yeah. As Stefan said,
Where's your crystal ball?
About a zillion.
Yeah, but putting clients on the framework, as you put it already, is the main goal, of course. How many?
40-12. No, it's hard to put. Even our expectations would not be sufficient, because still, if we expect something, we still, at the current state of adoption, we still have to be those who are convincing the client. It's not that major companies are only looking for the best framework to get. If this was the only question, then they would surely end up with Unibright, but they have to be convinced on how to use blockchain now. So given that state of adoption, it's really hard to tell a number of expectable clients.
It's too many external factors, like the blockchain technology market and the cryptocurrency market, how it's getting played out there by the members. There's something we are relying on.
And which is again something why we started the consulting service. Where we understood that just offering a framework makes it easy for companies to adopt to it. They have to understand the overall benefits, but why the usage of it makes sense, and where in their business specifically it makes sense to use it. So it goes hand in hand with the development of the people and their management.
Okay. Another one from Jordan Belfort. How many pilot clients does Unibright have at this moment?
I think we should have to distinguish between those that we offer consulting services to, like Deutsche Bahn, but the number of clients that are actually locked inside the framework, you can always look them up on Unibright.io. And we are perfectly transparent about that, but I don't know if it's like 5 or 6
or something.
5 or 6, yes. Okay. And then there's a question that Mario has on the Unibright, on the token use. He says, if a company gets like 50,000 tokens for the framework, but they're locked for 1 year, let's say they have used all the tokens after 3 months, can they buy it back? And I think he's talking about the redeem voucher. So
yes, the tokens that they lock inside the platform, they can buy back for the duration of the contract. The only rule that we have is that they cannot buy back earlier than 30 days. That's some kind of a lock period, because we wanted to avoid that a customer only buys 1 Unibright token and then renews it like every second. So he's only allowed to renew them at earliest after 30 days. Just a suggestion, there are many questions popping up in the live chat. So
we should. I'm still on the.
We should
question. I know that's what the question was from Mario in the live chat. Okay. Yes.
Only that we do not miss them.
Stefan is listening to the car, so hello, Stefan from the car. Let's see, we have
probably Lambo.
From his Lambo, not yet.
Let's see. Driving license.
Another one.
I saw a meme telling that Volvo is the new Lambo for 2009.
Oh, really? Another one from Jordan Belfort. How is the amount of tokens a company need calculated? For example, one client has locked 50,000 tokens until the 1st of January 2020. What happens when they need more tokens after 6 months? Does the team resell the 50,000 tokens to them?
Okay, the estimation for those tokens were on a monthly base. So they expected to have, what was the amount? 50,000?
Yeah, 50,000.
50,000 per month, and they are allowed to renew it like every 30 days. If they notice in some months that these 50,000 per month are not enough, then they have to bring new tokens in from the market for another contract. So they can always add, so to say. And if they don't use them, then they will still remain in the framework for later usage.
Okay. And so what happens after they decide not to use those 50,000 tokens anymore? How do they end up?
Well, they end up with all the tokens transferred to Unibright, and they will not use the framework anymore, and they will not buy any new tokens, and then they can leave, of course, but we do everything to keep them and to incentivize them to use more use cases with our framework, of course.
Okay. One from Daniel. How has the cooperation so far been with NEM? And can you describe what the difference is between using NEM and Ethereum?
The cooperation with NEM has been going on very well. They're very professional, and we got some great leads from them, great contacts we're working with. The second part of the question, what's the difference, when I get it right?
I think it was also because there was a certified partnership with NEM, where you did some workshop with them, and you did not do the same thing with Ethereum. So what's the difference between working with those two?
Okay, I think it's about the setup. Like NEM is set up differently from Ethereum. We don't have that close contact to the organization from Ethereum. Like we have to NEM. NEM is much more like looking at enterprises and businesses and doing like real business. And that's what makes it much more easy for us to talk with them and going onto workshops and to customers with them. There is no such structure with Ethereum.
Okay. And from a technical perspective, they are different from what they offer, because in Ethereum you can write smart contracts and literally do everything that a code can do. And NEM already uses some kind of abstraction, so you're not writing code, but you're rather designing something around what they call NEM features. So this is also the way they think is very comparable to what we do, abstracting from something technical and something difficult to something easier to use. So that's perhaps the technical difference between Ethereum.
Yeah, they're much more looking like which features are needed for their blockchain or for their protocol, and if they find features that are really needed for business usage, they put it into.
They pre-implement it.
Like the levy thing, for example, which is a technical detail, but it's a nice one. So they work a little differently.
Okay, great. We have a question in the chat from Bruno. Bruno Vidak. I think we already kind of answered that. When can we expect the full product from Unibright?
This was about product readiness. So hopefully never, because it will always add new features.
Another one from Bobby Thompson. Can you say some words about your partnership with Tolar? What attracts you to that project? And how do you choose your partner? And is there any network criteria?
Yes, I think when we claim to be blockchain agnostic, it was also about that we expected different approaches to arise. So there's, of course, many protocols doing somehow the same. And then from time to time, a protocol appears that does something completely different to perhaps be faster or more reliable or being able to store bigger amount of data. And Tolar is a perfect example for having a different approach, of having way more transactions per second in some kind of a distributed consensus, not all tokens, not all nodes holding the same information. So from a technical perspective, it's not that much different for us because they also use the Ethereum virtual machine and Solidity code, but their consensus mechanism is different, and that's what makes it interesting for us.
Yeah, I think top criteria would be like they're really offering something we can trust in. We always look into possible partners and have a look into their tech stack, and we are convinced and see some great potential. Yeah, then we go into the second and third round of talks, and that's how it works. And that's how it's been going with Tolar too. Yeah.
Back to the question how we choose partnerships. I think it's important to us. Different blockchain protocols mean a variety of tools we use for offering. We use them for different use cases. So that's important to see that it's always about fitting the performance of the demanded application we try to serve. So the more tools you got, the better.
So private approach.
For example, private or public or fast or big data or not big data.
Okay, good. We have Jonas, one of our ambassadors, he's in the chat as well. He says, after releasing the Unibright Solutions website and until this moment, how's it going? Is the phone line needed?
Who uses phone anyway? We get our requests by blockchain only. It's going very well, given the fact that it was just after holiday season and many people just approached it. We already sold a package and we have
one workshop sold. Yeah, that's great.
We have demand for several other workshops as well. So yes, I think it was a good decision to offer something in that space, bridging the gap.
Yeah, but that's not such a big surprise as we did it after getting the feeling that this is what is needed out there from the company side. It was a more general approach on blockchain technology.
It was a reaction on the things we did with Deutsche Bahn, because until then we did not have this offer, and then we decided to have it officially.
Okay. From Leon, we have a question. Is the Unibright team familiar with the NEM Catapult code? How do they see it impacting the Unibright framework? If additional features were built into Catapult, what would the Unibright team like to see?
Yeah, the workshop was already targeting the Catapult release, although it wasn't released. So the levy mechanism you told is part of the Catapult. So we're excited what NEM brings up next, but
we will tell them if they have any wishes.
The levy thing is actually we used for the plan.
Yes, exactly. For the proof of concept, it was already building on the Catapult release. So we're totally up to date concerning that.
I also have a question from the Telegram chat from Nul, and he's asking more about the software of Unibright. It's not open source right now. Are you guys thinking of changing that in the periods?
Yeah.
Because that's Nul also telling a lot of projects are open source, and it's also sort of the mind of the
that's true.
blockchain space.
Yeah. First of all, the idea or the reason why it's not open source, it's historical reason, because we started building on our integration platform that has been live for some years now, and we didn't start from scratch. And this software has has been licensed to customers in a way that we cannot put it on open source yet. But we discussed about open source and perhaps coming up with the idea of having more templates that will be implemented by us or by the community, and the idea would be to put them onto GitHub or some open source platform and to somehow move into this way of getting the community more and more into it, or having some dedicated, interfaces where other people can add extensions that are open source. So yes, we're thinking into it.
I think it's also important. Sometimes there's a misunderstanding of the term open source. Initially, open source means we offer code anybody can take, extend the code, and sell it for his own or use it for his own. Another approach is to show your code openly, and it's not open source; it's still our source, but we allow everybody to check it. And that's something we definitely do by our template code. So when you use our demo right now, you already can see the code preview for both Ethereum and EOS, and you can just you can copy it and you can check it, and we can externally audit it. So we are completely open about the code that we generate, but that doesn't mean it is open source and can be used by everyone and sold again. So we will not be an open source project like Linux is, but we will more and more open our code for public review if this is meant.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. This is from Fred Issue. Do you think there will be some token giveaway?
Currently, there's no giveaway. Like an
airdrop. Yes. Can say yes, can say no. We've been thinking about it, even talking to our lawyers about it. It plays some part in our mind. At the current state of the market, we didn't follow that plan any longer, but it might be that we come up with some innovative idea, perhaps even with the tokens we get from the framework or that are vested, that we come up with something to incentivize the investors. Yeah.
No. We'll announce it when something is ready.
I'm thinking about
Always thinking.
Okay. Then another one from Fred Issue. How about Deutsche Bahn? Have you tokenized? Was that operation with the tokenization successful?
This question sounds like if complete Deutsche Bahn is already tokenized and everybody's only using cryptocurrency to get from A to B. No, it's a kick-off workshop to dive into the possibilities of tokenizing a complete ecosystem. And the next steps would be to take one part of this concept and to actually implement it. But of course, this is also the decision of a big enterprise like Deutsche Bahn, and not our decision. We cannot force Deutsche Bahn to start with it today and to be finished like tomorrow.
But the vision would be to take away the traditional tickets that we all know, and have it replaced by some tokens you handle with wallets, like we know it out of blockchain.
But as he asked if it's successful, the workshop was successful, but of course the implementation is not.
Yeah, perhaps he is referring to successful in a way like, could you come up with a plan how it could be done?
Of course.
And yes, we found a plan. This venture was successful, but of course it's not been implemented. But I think he knows.
And the feedback from Deutsche Bank was also good.
Yeah.
Very good. But the Medium article says the same.
Yes.
Not blueprint.
Yeah. From Stefan, in one of our previous AMAs, Martin told us that they were currently working on 2 new templates. You guys visited an insurance company, and they should have interesting use cases about licensing and micropayments. How did this work out, and are there any other interesting use cases that Unibright is currently working on?
Yeah, it's what I've mentioned already. The tokenization thing has pushed away literally everything else. So the software and the, let's say, licensing template has been scheduled for a little later use, and now we're looking very heavily into tokenization and ecosystems, because it's not only Deutsche Bahn. We got the overall feeling that this is, not the next big thing, but it's a big thing that is coming. Big demand on it, and so it's all about tokenization for new templates at the moment.
Okay, good. And then we have some question from Itzvan Deak from NEM. Did the Node Rapid prototyping tool play a role in the Deutsche Bahn use case?
For our developers who had a look into the development tools, of course, but given the audience of the workshop, who were like decision makers of Deutsche Bahn and not programmers themselves, no.
Okay. Yes. One question from Nikolai. Please tell us more details, yet untold, about your cooperation with Deutsche Bahn. I think
not everyone wants to know.
Everybody wants to know. There's so much information about Deutsche Bahn available already. So let's put this on. So please go to the articles, and I think there's enough information in all the articles about that. And what other partnerships from Nikolai as well, or clients or deals, do you guys have in the pipeline?
If they're only in the pipeline, then they're not released, and we will tell about them when they are fixed and ready to release. This is something we decided on around September, that we had a talk, an internal talk, and we noticed that it doesn't feel too good for us to announce announcements and tell you, there's something big in the pipeline. We felt very comfortable with being able to release that Deutsche Bahn thing, for example, after it was really done and the real effort was there and the real quotes from real people from Deutsche Bahn was there. So this is the way we'll handle these kind of things and tell you as soon as something is ready to tell.
Yes, I have one from Neem Flight. Do you work with startups?
Very generic question.
Well, Tolar is a startup.
We're a startup ourselves, so it would be great.
There's a lot of startups being interested in our solution. They have some, actually they're working with some blueprints of ideas they're going for, and they need some blockchain solutions. They actually were being approached quite often by startups. Now that I think of it.
One of our clients who locked tokens is also a startup. But perhaps this question comes up because we mainly wrote blog about our collaboration with Lufthansa and with Deutsche Bahn, so heading for big enterprises.
It's what we're used to from our history.
Yeah, but we are not restricted to $1 million enterprises, of course. When a startup has a good idea and they use for the Unibright framework or for a workshop, we will also be happy to help, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Then we have one from Unit. Does Unibright manage to get attention from companies releasing of Unibright solutions service until this moment? Okay, so how is the Unibright solution? I think you already asked that, Unit. It's the same question. How can a community help even more?
The community in terms of
with the Unibright solutions, or maybe in general for
spreading in different communities.
Yeah, spreading in different communities, talking to businesses. We still have an ambassador program. We already have plenty of great ambassadors working for us. Jack here as well, and me as well. So please send me a message on Ruud at the Telegram chat or Jack, and yeah, apply for ambassadorship. We have about 12 ambassadors right now who are doing great work. So yeah, everybody is welcome, and give us a hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Eric, does Unibright have, I like this question, does Unibright have principles about certain parts of the markets or companies that they don't want to do business with?
Like ethic.
Like ethically, maybe weapons, I don't know.
Something.
Yeah.
Like Monsanto on the blockchain.
Yeah, I guess they're not explicitly put down.
Yeah.
Of course, parts of the core team know each other for more than 30 years now, so we share some common understanding on how we see the world. For example, Bastian has a big background in the NGO sector as well. But currently, we have not been approached by any company where we thought it would be ethically problematically to work with them.
Yeah, it's not ethical, but to be honest, of course, we put down some leads or some requests by certain parties just because some parts didn't feel right. I don't know if it was about ethical things, but yes, sure, there are things.
For example, if somebody approaches us for a partnership and isn't even willing to show himself on the first Skype call, but rather uses a secret chat name and tries to get a partnership from us, then we will of course not make it. So it's more like sound business rules that we have and that we also apply, but there's no ethic catalog.
I think we can say that in the past we've been lucky enough to have some topics on the table where we got close to topics which were not only nice to work with out of a blockchain perspective, but out of ethical things. Like, for example, we were getting in touch with an eco-fashion brand, and now we're more and more discussing about making donations for NGOs and stuff. And this is where we combine our approach, talking about the public or the benefits of blockchain for society, as well as how our framework can be of use here. So we rather meet in stuff we want to do that not only meets our blockchain interest, but our ethical points of view as well. Yeah. But fortunately enough, we're not forced to think about partnering up with someone where we were not sure if that's worth it out of an ethical point. So
I think that's a great point. Anyway, that it's much more about partnering up with all the parties and entities that are involved in this blockchain and decentralized world or movement, and that it's about looking at it midterm or long term, and joining, partnering, and working on it together. That's why I very much like the idea of people getting involved with us too, and coming up with a common catalog of things to do.
It's really good. I think to me it's an important part. For example, when we've been doing our ICO, I've been to Nairobi on a big event, and you can see that there's people really being interested in the technology itself, where, for example, it can strengthen the democracy in the country. Like, let's only think of elections and stuff. So you must not miss that point, not only focusing on business only, but see the overall picture and the holistic approach where blockchain makes sense, and then all of a sudden you get a better idea for maybe your own business, and that's, I think, how we work. And it's a good approach.
It's also a point in the Unibright solution part, where you say universities can also come over and learn from our framework.
Yeah, this is also something
that part. There were also, after that was on Twitter, people were asking, can we already use it? They need maybe some kind of start a manual to start with it, but they are willing to learn. And I think this is one of the easiest way to learn how things work with our frameworks.
Yeah, very good. And you should always think about spreading the word, not only about we give away information, but it's also about education. So working together with universities, for example, is something that comes up even more often in the last days and weeks after the public demo release. So we also see great potential there, working with students. Then it's completely non-profit, and of course they will not like lock millions of tokens inside the platform, but all these in the first place, but all these students then have a better understanding of blockchain, and perhaps they will all end up in companies that need a framework when it actually comes to implementing something. So this is also good on our end, doing these kinds of things.
Okay, that's a good thing, because I think it's not only about blockchain, but to make the transition where it makes sense for a point of interest I'm in. Like that starts with people or clients or approaching you guys or the ambassadors or us. Like, how does your blockchain or your framework make sense to us? I don't know. You know your business, you know your field, you know your point of view, and then we can come together. And this is like when I think we learned stuff at best when we're interested in some things. Right? Learning English when you like the song because you want to understand the lyrics, and maybe blockchain makes sense here and there because it's real benefits, and that's actually how companies approach us, where there's we call it pain point, right? Where the product really can benefit from blockchain. Then it's the fun part starts where you can find solutions. Not only think of blockchain only, and then you're looking for something, but it's actually not a magic stick. And then,
and I've, as a moderator in the group, I see a lot of questions in the middle of the night or in the morning. morning to A5, one of our biggest fans.
Yes.
But what they're also asking a lot is the connector of Unibright. And people asking, what is the connector? Can it connect to everything? We talked about SAP, ARP, oracles. I heard sometimes it's also possible to connect it with oracles. And that's also the view I have about the developers of Unibright. When I ask you guys something, is it possible to connect it with this? You always say it is, or we will work on it and it will be.
Exactly.
So, and that's also what people must understand with Unibright. It's not, we are hybrid or.
It's not set in stone.
It's important that this integration perspective. During the beginning of the startup, we always focused on integrating different technologies.
Yes, correct.
But the more we move on, we notice that it's also about integrating like partners or participants of an ecosystem. So this integration perspective is very important to get a new technology going, not only by connecting it to different technologies, but also by connecting it to different brains, different communities, different legal entities, or whatever.
It's good to understand
it's a very powerful part of the framework.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm not sure if it's not only about blockchain being blockchain agnostic, but really making use of it. And making use of it, first place is to have the interface to your running system that exists already.
To your running business. I think we got away from the initial question.
Yeah, but that's okay as well. The main point of people interested in Unibright, and you can read about it on the website. It's good to feel it also.
The main point enterprises have too. Is that 99% of the systems are off-chain, and they don't know the blockchain world, and then it's always about connecting and integrating, and that's what we've been doing a long time, what we can do with the connector already today to different systems, like you just stated. So yes, it's very exciting point.
It's the same. And when people come in and they're interested in Unibright, they are always looking to the unique points because they see 2,000 projects, and that's done for the people coming into the group, not for business side, but for that's what I'm.
Good. Okay. We have one more question from Blockchain Comparison. Which technical blockchain projects or developments are you particularly interested in?
Meaning different protocols?
Doesn't specify, but probably.
Of course, we are screening the market for potential partnerships. We are contacted by different companies to be a partner. So it feels quite natural to always look for new things.
The ERC 721 standard, tokenization again, tangible tokens, fungible tokens. everything that
It
comes
would be
with it.
hard for me to pick one.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the last question. Do you have one more question? I have a Fred issue. When moon?
Moon.
Let me see. It's coming. I see. It's over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess this question refers to some cryptocurrency or market prices. The one finding we discuss very often is that there are external factors out there that influence prices in the markets very strongly. So our influence to it is limited, and our common ground is to work on the product and the project and the leads and the customers we have. Come up with the news when they are ready to be told, and this is what we control. This is what we do.
Exchange is also always looking for new exchanges. That's what people always ask me for. We understand.
All right. One last question from Unit. Can someone bring tokens only from the market without signing a contract with Unibright for using the framework? Like every month to bring necessary number of tokens it's needed?
Yeah, of course, he doesn't have to sign a contract for renewal, so he can just buy tokens on demand and then bring them into the platform.
Yeah.
Although it's most, again, from the enterprise view that we have, it would be really interesting or new to have this approach, because you don't want to do integration once. You want to have it as an ongoing process. But theoretically speaking, it would be possible.
Yeah. Okay. I think I have no more questions here. So we're all done.
At the time.
Yeah, we have almost 1 hour.
You're monitoring YouTube as well?
Sorry?
YouTube questions?
I included that. Yeah. I'm multitasking.
We are close to the 1 hour. That's great.
Yeah.
I have another one from the Telegram. Let's go from Null. Could there potentially be a way to make Unibright Data Connector as a bridge between high-performance blockchains and blockchains like Ethereum?
Absolutely.
Make a hybrid which utilize best sides of both.
Of course, absolutely. That's
Null is always
Yes, we
for me also as a moderator.
Null is Eugene.
We already worked on a concept that is about scaling architecture of blockchains. So perhaps having a private chain between some players in an existing ecosystem, and then adding parts of the information into a public chain, or perhaps into a chain that can handle bigger data or faster throughput, as we put it before. So yes, totally, and that's also one idea that we think that will have more requests and more demand by the time that companies understand the potential behind it. Building scale blockchain architectures and having the need to connect and integrate between these different networks. And that's where Unibright also is perfectly for
and execute smart contracts.
That's why we came up with the idea of having a business process, starting SLP, going to Ethereum, and then switching to EOS, and going back to SLP just to demonstrate switching blockchains, going between blockchain world, connecting customized solutions.
Yes. Okay. I think that's about it. I do want to give one shout out to the ambassadors who've been doing a lot of work. So that's Mac, that's Neha, that's Anil, that's Abhilash, that's Jack, that's Jonut, that's who else do we have? We have Noel, which is Eugene. We have Davison. We have Stefan. We have Claudia, Dan, the bandman. We have Thomas, Ryan, Daniel. So Veril, Terrence, those are all ambassadors. So thank you very much for everything you've done so far. So we wish you all a very happy 2019, and we look forward to this coming year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Great time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.